You just finished watching how to do a think, pair, share. Yes, think, pair, share. So this was an example of one type of learning probe that a teacher could use to check for understanding in their students after presenting new material. Another way is to just ask them questions. So just ask them, does this make sense? Does anybody have any questions? The important part about asking questions is to give them enough time to assess in their brains, well, do I have any questions? Do I understand this? And then as well as to formulate a question to ask you. So you want to use the appropriate amount of wait time after you pose a question when you're checking for understanding. Research shows that 3 to 5 seconds is best practice of wait time when asking a question. Another way to ask questions is to use a calling order. So if you think back to kindergarten, your kindergarten teacher may have had popsicle sticks with your names on them, and she just pulled them out, and that was the person who she asked the question to. So that's a way to facilitate a random calling order of calling on anyone at any time. Additionally, you could, as a teacher, use a pre-chosen calling order. So you could call down the roster or order your questions based on where people are sitting in the classroom. And another response method that you as a teacher can use when asking a question is called the choral response or the all people response. And this is where everyone says the answer together. So after you've conducted your learning probe, you want to provide students with independent practice so that they're able to work on those newly learned skills or knowledge to be able to practice it and express it themselves. So an example of this could be a worksheet of math problems to work through independently immediately following a lesson. Or this could also be homework, so giving them practice opportunities to do at home in a new setting, such as doing a worksheet or describing what they've learned to their mom or dad or brother or sister. And the key for independent practice is to keep the assignment short, give clear directions, and provide adequate time to review their work and correct errors. So you don't want to run into the issue where the assignment is too complex for the students and they're not able to really grasp what they're supposed to do or finish it in the amount of time that they're given. Additionally, there's a good chance that when students are engaging in independent practice that they could be doing it wrong. So you don't want to run into the scenario where you've taught a new lesson, you are giving them a chance to practice their new skills, and they make an error, and then that error is never corrected because what was just reinforced in their mind and their understanding of that information was the error that they made. So as a teacher, we want to make sure to check on their independent practice and then give feedback. Because without feedback, how can people really know what they did wrong or right and find new ways to grow? And as teachers, that's our job. We want to best support the growth of knowledge in our students. So we want to be able to check on their work, provide corrective feedback, and give them more opportunities to grow in the future. After we've provided independent practice, we then want to assess their performance and again provide feedback. So there are kind of two sorts of assessment. There's formal assessment and informal assessment. And you're probably thinking, well, informal assessment is a lot like those learning probes that we conducted earlier. And you're exactly right. So informal strategies could be those questioning strategies that we talked about earlier, using a KWL or a think, pair, share, using an exit ticket, or observing students' cooperative learning opportunities. Whereas more formal assessment procedures are those quizzes and exams or reports that we all know and love. Formal is more for grading purposes, whereas informal is lower stakes, but is still measuring whether or not students know material. And remember, you must always provide feedback. Students have to know what they're doing right and what they're doing incorrectly. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to differentiate, and they may think that they're doing something right when they're really doing it wrong. And then that just has implications for later learning. Thinking back to prerequisites, this could be a reason why a student doesn't have a prerequisite to be able to learn your material, because when being taught about this material in the past, they learned something incorrectly and they never were provided feedback to rectify that and grow. So feedback, 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 always provide feedback. And that's why I, as a teacher, really strive not just to slap a number on your grade, but to take the time to go through your work with you and parse out the areas where you are spot on versus areas that need to be tweaked a little bit in order to be completely accurate. And I think, and research shows, that that's a much more meaningful experience for students than just randomly writing a grade on it and then moving on. But that requires us as teachers to take the time to do that, which can be time-consuming. All right, this is where this part of this week's lecture will end. So this check for understanding question is a little bit different. You're going to be able to choose which of the following 3 videos you would like to watch and comment on. So there are 3 different videos: how to do an exit slip, how to use a thermometer, and how to do a commit and toss. Choose whichever one you want to watch. You're welcome to watch all 3, but for the purpose of this video, this question, you only need to watch one. So once you've watched the one video that you've chosen, you're going to comment on it. So open up your Word document again for your next check for understanding question. And your check for understanding question is to answer the following about the assessment technique that you chose. A, briefly describe how an instructor can utilize the assessment technique you chose. B, do you think this is an effective technique? Why or why not? C, how can you use this technique in your future or current career? So once you have finished writing up your check for understanding question, we'll pick up in the next part of the recorded lecture.